Konoha felt it before dawn. Not as an explosion. Not as an alarm. As pressure.
A slow, impossible pressure that slid beneath doors, crept through window cracks, settled into sleeping lungs, and made an entire village wake with the same instinct at the same time.
Danger.
In the civilian district, dogs started barking at nothing. In the Hyuga compound, candles went out in a single breath. Deep under the Hokage Tower, the barrier team jerked upright over their seals as lines of chakra trembled across the grid like nerves reacting to a knife. Then the first sensor Nin vomited blood. "It's below us," he gasped, fingers shaking over the detection array.
No, that's wrong. It's everywhere under us. Like something is spreading through the foundation.
At the Namake's residence, Minato's eyes snapped open. Kushina was already sitting up, hand over her chest, red hair falling loose over her shoulders.
"You felt it too," she whispered. Minato didn't answer immediately. He didn't need to.
The entire house groaned once, as if wood and stone were being forced to remember fear. Across the hall, Naruto kicked her door open.
"Dad!"
Then she stopped. The air in the hallway had changed. It was cold, but not naturally cold. This was the kind of cold that came from standing near an open grave, or from looking into deep water and realizing something below had looked back first.
Kushina rose so quickly her chair fell backward. Naruto. Not because she knew. Because suddenly she did.
Far beneath the village, in the hidden chamber Naruto had claimed as his own, the far wall did not collapse.
It unfolded.
Stone peeled backward in layers.
Ancient seals blackened and evaporated.
Bone-like growths spread across the chamber floor like roots made from moonlight and death, crawling toward Naruto's feet without touching him, recognizing him, waiting.
The two golden eyes in the darkness blinked once.
Then a voice deeper than the hollow's laugh rolled through the chamber.
"Neglect breeds hunger. Hunger breeds kings."
Hinata fell to one knee, one hand against the ground, the Yakugan flaring on instinct before the pressure forced it shut again. Haku had drawn Senbon before he realized weapons meant nothing here.
Naruto stood still. Not unafraid. Just unwilling to show fear first.
The system voice sharpened inside his skull.
"Report, sealed entity identified. Hollow line progenitor fragment detected."
The darkness moved. A shape emerged from behind the broken wall, tall, skeletal, draped in white armor that looked grown rather than forged, its face hidden behind a fractured mask crowned by jagged horns.
It was not alive in any human way. It was residue. Instinct.
A throne-given memory. And yet when it looked at Naruto, it smiled.
The smile appeared not on its face, but in the pressure around it.
"You heard me when no one else did," Naruto said.
The entity tilted its head. "No. I answered when no one else did."
The hollow manifested at Naruto's side, grinning whiter than ever. For once, even he looked amused instead of feral.
"Congratulations," he said. "You found the part of yourself that doesn't pretend." Hinata's breathing was shallow. "Naruto, what is that?"
Naruto kept his eyes on the figure.
"A consequence."
The chamber trembled.
Dust fell. Above them, Konoha's foundation seals began to distort, one after another.
The entity lifted one hand, clawed fingers opening toward Naruto's chest.
"You stand at the edge of your second birth," it said. "Your pain gave you form. Your isolation gave you control. But control is not enough. Now the world must pay attention." The words settled into Naruto like law.
For years, attention had been the one thing he could never earn honestly.
Not from his parents. Not from the village. Not even from fate.
Now it was arriving the only way the world truly respected anything.
Through fear. Analysis, the system whispered. Ascension path available. Accepting will trigger regional consequences.
Naruto's eyes did not leave the figure.
What kind of consequences? The entity answered for the system. The village will feel you. Silence.
Then the faintest smile touched Naruto's mouth. Good. He placed his hand against the thing's outstretched claws. The impact was spiritual, not physical. A pulse detonated through the chamber. White bone surged across the walls. Black-red pressure exploded upward through the earth in invisible pillars. Every seal within a mile radius screamed. The training hall cracked open, and Naruto's inner world split for a moment into two overlapping landscapes, the underground base, and something else.
A white desert. A black moon.
A throne made of jagged bone. Naruto was standing in both places at once.
He heard Hinata call his name from far away.
He heard Haku brace himself against the wall.
He heard the hollow laugh.
He heard the system voice become almost reverent.
Evolution initiated. New ability seed acquired, Ryatsu Dominion. Above ground, civilians fell out of bed gasping. In the academy dormitory wing, a shelf collapsed. At the hospital, 3 patients with chakra instability started seizing.
The village's detection barrier flashed crimson.
ANBU poured onto rooftops. Shinobi dogs whined and refused commands. Children cried without understanding why.
At the center of all of it, the Hokage Tower bells rang once. Then stopped halfway through the second note.
Minato was already in motion.
Barrier squad with me, he ordered, Yellowcloak snapping behind him.
Kushina, check the residential seal grid. Do not engage until we know what this is. Kushina caught his arm. Her expression had gone pale in a way Minato had only seen during war. If this is Naruto. He looked at her.
And for the first time, the truth sat between them too naked to ignore.
If this is Naruto, then we did not notice until the village forced us to. Minato closed his eyes for half a second. Then I should have seen this coming. Naruko heard that.
And something in her face hardened.
Not against Naruto. Against them.
You should have, she said quietly. Then she was gone, vaulting out the window before either parent could stop her. The village had started whispering before sunrise. By full morning, whispering had become narrative. The butcher on East Street swore the ground under his shop had breathed. A retired chunin insisted he'd felt killing intent from beneath the market square. Academy students traded frightened versions of the same rumor that the other Namake's twin had brought back a curse from Wave. By noon, the rumor had transformed again.
Naruto was unstable. Naruto had snapped.
Naruto was the fox showing itself.
Konoha had always been efficient at turning pain into gossip.
And this time, the fear made it easier. Naruto emerged from the underground chamber hours later, changed in ways subtle enough to miss if you weren't looking and horrifying enough to haunt you if you were. His movements were quieter. His posture straighter.
The pressure around him no longer leaked by accident. It obeyed.
White fragments now rested permanently beneath the skin around his collarbone like buried porcelain. When he blinked, his pupils sharpened for a fraction of a second, becoming predatory slits before smoothing back into human blue.
Hinata noticed and did not step back. Haku noticed and concealed his fear better, but not perfectly.
Naruto stood before the central seal table while new lines of information scrolled through his mind.
Report. Ascension Phase 1 complete. Ryatsu Dominion unlocked. Mask fragment stability increased. Spiritual armor trait acquired, Hiero. Base synchronization at 23%. He exhaled slowly.
Every breath felt heavier now.
Not labored. Significant.
As if even breathing had become an assertion of presence.
Haku spoke first.
The whole village felt that.
Yes. They'll come. Yes. Hinata's voice was soft. Are we leaving? Naruto turned toward her. That question mattered. Not strategically. Emotionally.
Because leaving meant retreat, and despite everything, some part of the boy who used to stare at his family from the hallway still hated retreat. Hated being the one who moved aside so others could stay comfortable.
No, he said. Let them come closer. It's time they see what they ignored.
Hinata lowered her eyes, not in fear but in acceptance.
Haku crossed his arms.
Then we need layers.
False routes. Surface exits. Decoys. Naruto almost smiled. This was why broken people made the best allies.
They understood preparation because the world had punished them for lacking it.
Do it, Naruto said. And Haku. Haku looked up. You're officially dead to Konoha. Use that. A faint, razor-thin smile appeared on Haku's face. Gladly.
By afternoon, Kakashi had pieced together enough to make him deeply uncomfortable.
Wave. Naruto's impossible adaptation.
The hidden precision behind his academy failures. The pressure bursts.
Now this.
He stood in the Hokage's office while elders argued at varying volumes around him.
Koharu wanted surveillance. Hamura wanted containment.
Danzo, seated in shadow, wanted what he always wanted when a child with terrifying potential appeared.
Ownership. This is exactly why unstable power should be brought under disciplined supervision, Danzo said, voice dry as old paper.
If the boy has developed an aberrant bloodline or spiritual mutation, he is now a village asset.
Kushina looked like she might hit him. Asset, she repeated. He's my son.
Danzo's visible eye shifted toward her.
Then perhaps you should have raised him as one. The room went still. Even Minato's control slipped for a second. Not because Danzo was wrong.
Because he had said aloud the thing none of them wanted spoken. Naruko, standing near the door after forcing her way into the meeting, clenched her fists so hard her nails drew blood.
Kakashi closed his book. That alone got everyone's attention.
You're all making the same mistake, he said.
Danzo's eye narrowed. And what mistake is that? Kakashi's gaze was lazy only on the surface. Beneath it was iron.
You're still talking like Naruto is a problem waiting to be managed. He let the silence sharpen. You should be considering the possibility that he's already beyond that.
No one liked hearing that. Which made it useful. Minato looked out over the village through the office windows, sunlight catching the edges of his cloak. He remembered Naruto's question from the night before. Would it concern you if Naruto did it?
He had no defense against the memory of his own hesitation.
No Hokage doctrine. No battlefield logic. No excuse built from duty. Just failure. A and BU will not approach him aggressively, Minato said at last. Observation only.
I'll speak to him myself.
Danzo's cane tapped the floor once. A dangerous gamble. Minato didn't turn around. No. The dangerous gamble was neglecting him until now. Kushina closed her eyes. Naruko looked at her parents, then away. There are moments in families when love and anger become impossible to separate. This was one of them. Naruto's first public appearance after the surge happened in the market. Not because he needed food. Because he wanted the village to look at him and understand what attention cost now. He walked through the crowded street just after sunset, hands in his pockets, expression calm. Haku moved 3 rooftops above as silent overwatch. Hinata stayed farther back, hidden by a plain cloak and better posture than she'd possessed a month ago. At first, no one noticed. Then a fruit vendor dropped an apple. Then a woman froze mid-sentence and pulled her child closer. Then the whispers started moving ahead of him faster than footsteps. That's him. Don't stare. Something's wrong with his eyes. Naruto kept walking. The pressure around him was restrained, but not absent. People felt it the way small animals feel a storm front. Windows trembled slightly as he passed. A lantern flickered out above a tea stand. A civilian shunin trying to step into his path found his knees weakening for no reason he could explain. For the first time in his life, no one overlooked him. And it felt empty. That was the real punishment. Not fear. Meaninglessness.
All that wanting, all those years of being invisible, and now that the village finally turned to watch him, Naruto discovered attention without love was just another kind of cold. A child near a toy stall looked up at him and whispered, "Is he the monster?" The mother shushed the child instantly.
Naruto stopped walking. The entire street held its breath. He turned his head slowly, looking at the child, then at the mother, then at the market as a whole. Somewhere behind him, Haku tensed. Hinata's fingers curled inside her sleeves. Naruto could have shattered the moment.
Could have dropped the whole street to its knees. Could have carved terror so deep into Konoha's spine that the village would never again speak the word monster casually. Instead, he crouched to the child's eye level. His face was unreadable. Then he asked, very softly, "Do monsters scare you more when they roar, or when nobody listens until they do?" The child didn't answer. The mother looked like she might faint. Naruto rose and kept walking. Behind him, the market stayed silent for almost 10 full seconds after he was gone. That silence spread farther than any outburst would have. If you're enjoying this story, then you already feel what Konoha is starting to understand. The scariest version of Naruto was never the loud one. It was the one who learned how to speak softly after surviving silence. That night, Minato found the old Namake's chamber.
Or rather, what remained of the original chamber.
The outer seals still recognized his blood.
The inner corridors did not.
He moved carefully through tunnels that should not have existed in their current form. Bone-white structures veined through the walls. New seal arrays, brilliantly engineered and ruthlessly optimized, had been layered over his old work. Storage shelves had been repurposed.
Defensive trap matrices pulsed underfoot.
The place did not feel stolen. It felt surpassed.
Kushina followed a step behind him, chakra chains ready, expression drawn tight. She saw the training marks first.
Not random impacts.
Patterns. Weeks. Months, maybe, of discipline and secret.
There were height marks etched into one stone column in Naruto's handwriting, smaller near the bottom, more recent and cleaner near the top. There was an old bowl repaired with seal adhesive.
There were notebooks. Control calculations. Pressure measurements.
Emotional suppression timings written in neat script no child should have needed to create. And on one wall, in tiny letters half scratched into the stone, a line that made Kushina stop breathing. "If no one comes, become enough to stand alone." Her hand covered her mouth. Minato stared at the words like a kunai between the ribs. He remembered every time he had walked past Naruto's room and assumed quiet meant okay.
Every time Kushina had said, "He's so independent."
Every time Naruto had taken the center because she was brighter, louder, easier to monitor, easier to fear losing.
Neglect rarely looks evil while it's happening. It looks efficient. Logical. Temporary.
Until one day you discover your son built an entire second life beneath your feet because the first one had no room for him.
Kushina sat down hard on the edge of the training platform.
"I didn't see him," she whispered.
Minato didn't answer. Because she wasn't talking about tonight. She was talking about years. Naruto found them there.
Her footsteps slowed the moment she took in the chamber.
The walls. The notebooks. The scratched line.
The private evidence that her brother had not been dramatic, difficult, or distant. He had been abandoned in inches.
"I thought," she began, then stopped. "I thought he just liked being alone." Kushina's laugh came out broken. "So did I." Naruto's eyes hardened with sudden tears. "Then you didn't know him at all." That landed. Minato turned toward her. "Naruto."
No, she stepped back, shaking.
"Don't do that Hokage voice with me right now." He was right there. Every day. Right there.
The accusation hung in the chamber like smoke.
Naruto wasn't blameless, and she knew it.
That was why she spoke with such fury.
Guilt often sounds like anger when it hasn't figured out where to go. Then one of the seals lit up. All three froze. Not one of Minato's seals. One of Naruto's. A message array.
Black light spread across the opposite wall, and words formed from condensed spiritual pressure.
You found it late. Kushina surged forward. Naruto. More words appeared. Do not bring Anbu here again. Minato's eyes narrowed. You're watching us. A pause. Then. I learned from the best. Hidden layers. Space-marked observation. Efficient, isn't it? Minato felt that one personally. Naruto stepped closer to the message wall. Nissan, just talk to us. For the first time, the answer took longer.
When it came, the letters looked slightly less precise.
About what? The years you missed? Or the power you finally noticed? Naruto swallowed hard. About all of it. Silence.
Then the final line appeared, and this one made the room colder than any threat could have. If I mattered before I became dangerous, you would not need a seal to find me.
The message dissolved. Kushina broke. Not loudly. That would have been easier.
She just sat there staring at the wall where his words had been, shoulders shaking without sound.
Minato closed his eyes. Naruto looked away because seeing parents fail hurts differently when you still love them. Danzo moved before dawn. Of course he did.
Route operatives began tracing Hinata's altered routine, the market disturbances, the hidden routes beneath abandoned sectors.
Not because Danzo knew everything.
Because he understood patterns of isolation better than most men understood honesty.
He also recognized assets forming around dangerous boys. Haku detected the first tail shadowing him near the eastern drainage canals. He didn't alert Naruto immediately. He dealt with the operative first.
The route agent died without a scream, sunburned through the throat from a blind angle no standard tracker would have anticipated.
Haku dragged the body into runoff and stripped the identification tags.
When he placed them on Naruto's table an hour later, the room went still.
Danzo, Naruto said. Not a question. Haku nodded. Hinata looked between them. He's targeting us?
Naruto's expression didn't change, but the lamps dimmed.
He's targeting leverage. System text flashed through his mind. Analysis, internal village faction escalation confirmed. Recommended response, counterinfiltration. Naruto looked at the route tags, then at the map of Konoha, then at the financial ledgers stolen from Gato. Routes. Bribes. Black accounts.
Shipping manifests tied to Fire Country subcontractors who quietly serviced older council channels. The village had neglected him.
Its leadership had underestimated him.
And now one of its darkest elders intended to weaponize the consequences.
Naruto's fingers tapped the table once. Good, he said. Hinata blinked. Good.
Naruto's eyes rose to hers, and there was something terrifyingly composed in them.
He moved first. That means I can move honestly. By midnight, 3 merchant houses tied to Danzo's unofficial procurement line were burning. Not exploding. Burning.
Controlled, surgical fires that destroyed records before water teams could respond.
2 courier chains disappeared.
A warehouse in the outskirts was emptied of weapons and left untouched except for a single symbol burned into the central beam, a fractured white crescent.
No one claimed responsibility. Everyone understood the message. By morning, Danzo had lost resources he couldn't officially admit existed.
And Naruto had announced a truth the village was not ready for. This was no longer a family matter. This was structural. The reckoning had moved from emotion into systems. Kakashi found Naruto on the memorial stone hill just before sunrise. Of course he did. It was the one place in Konoha where people went when grief became too heavy to carry indoors. Naruto stood with his hands in his pockets, wind moving through his blonde hair, eyes on the names cut into stone. Kakashi landed beside him with the casual silence of someone who had survived too much to waste motion.
For a while, neither spoke. Then Kakashi said, burning Danzo's supply line is bold. Naruto didn't look at him. Was I supposed to wait until he put a seal collar on someone I care about? Kakashi's eye curved faintly. Someone you care about, huh? Naruto's jaw tightened almost invisibly. Don't reduce it. Kakashi's humor vanished. I'm not. Silence returned. Then Kakashi did something unexpected. He took his hand off the book and let it hang at his side, honest posture instead of mask posture. The village is afraid of you, he said. Some of that is ignorance. Some of it is politics. Some of it, he glanced sideways. Some of it is because you are, objectively, becoming very hard to measure. Naruto finally looked at him. And you? Kakashi thought about it. The student who moved like a ghost through wave. The boy who coordinated instead of grandstanding. The son of his teacher, standing on a hill full of dead names with the posture of someone who had buried his childhood already. I think, Kakashi said slowly, you were failed before you became dangerous. And now people are trying to pretend the order happened the other way around. Naruto stared at him. That landed deeper than Kakashi intended. Because it was true. And truth, from the right mouth, is more destabilizing than sympathy. You should leave the village for a while, Kakashi added. Not as surrender. As position. Naruto looked back toward Konoha, rooftops lit gold by early morning. No. Why? His answer came flat and perfect. Because leaving would make this easier for them. They'd call me unstable, exile me in all but name, then mourn the tragedy of the weapon they never understood. He tilted his head slightly. I'd rather stay and make them understand exactly what they built. Kakashi exhaled through his nose. That sounded too much like Minato when he was certain. Which, for everyone involved, was a very bad sign. The official reckoning happened 3 nights later. Not by plan. By collision. The council had arranged a sealed emergency meeting in the Hokage Tower. Elders. Clan heads. Barrier command. Select Jonin. The topic was not named, but everyone knew. Naruto. Danzo arrived with root hidden in the perimeter. Hayashi came because Hinata had begun changing in ways he no longer understood. Shikako came because patterns of pressure anomalies and economic sabotage were starting to align too cleanly to ignore. Kushina came because she refused to let them discuss her son like a weapon schematic. Minato came because being Hokage did not excuse being a father, and being a father did not cancel the consequences of being Hokage. Naruko came because no one could stop her. And Naruto came because every seal in the tower had already been compromised by the time the meeting started. The lights went out. Not all at once. 1 row at a time. Torch flame bent sideways. Paper rustled. The windows groaned under sudden pressure. ANBU on the roof collapsed to one knee as invisible force settled over the tower like the hand of a god pressing downward. Then the doors opened by themselves. Naruto walked in alone. No headband. No smile. Just black clothes, pale skin, and eyes so calm they made the room feel loud. Several jonin reached for weapons. Every blade stopped halfway out of the sheath. Ryatsu Dominion flooded the chamber. The air thickened into weight. Chair legs cracked. Ink bottles shattered. Danzo's cane snapped against the floor with a dry crack. 2 council aides dropped unconscious instantly. Even the clan heads felt it, an immense, cold, sovereign pressure that did not roar or flare. It simply decided the room would kneel. Most of it did. Not fully. Just enough. Enough for Konoha's power structure to feel the humiliation of gravity choosing someone else. Naruto's voice was quiet. Since you were all going to discuss me, I decided to attend. Minato forced himself upright against the pressure. Naruto, lower this. No. 1 word. Still, flat, absolute. Hayashi's Byakugan flickered and died under the strain. Shikaku, sweat on his brow, measured the room with brilliant, desperate calm. Danzo's visible eye narrowed not in fear, but calculation. Naruto was the only one staring at Naruto not as an enemy, but as a brother she no longer recognized and refused to surrender anyway. Kushina rose next. Not fully. But enough. Please, she said. The word shook. Everyone heard it. Not because of volume. Because Kushina Uzumaki was not a woman who said please from weakness. She said it like a mother standing barefoot on broken glass. Naruto looked at her. And for one terrible second, his expression almost broke. Flashback. A hand once brushing his hair without pausing long enough to notice he leaned into it. A saved slice of cake. A rushed goodnight. Not cruelty. Just absence wearing the face of love. That made it harder. Because monsters are easier to hate than parents who simply failed you little by little. The pressure in the room eased slightly. Only slightly. Naruto's gaze moved across everyone. I am done being interpreted by people who never paid attention, he said. Danzo moved against those under my protection. The market whispers. The council calculates. The village fears me now because fear is simpler than guilt. No one answered. Because no one could. Naruto stepped farther into the room. Each footfall sounded too loud in the silence. I protected your mission in Wave. I returned with more intelligence than any genin team should have. I strengthened those you overlooked. I harmed no one in the village who did not move against me. His eyes found Danzo. Yet the first official response was ownership. Danzo's voice came strained but controlled. Power without regulation threatens the village. Naruto turned fully toward him. White fragments spread over one side of his face. Not a full mask. A warning. And a village without conscience threatens everyone inside it. Danzo's remaining hand twitched toward hidden seals. Bad decision. Naruto vanished. Sonido cracked the room apart. The next instant, Danzo was pinned against the far wall by his throat, not touched by Naruto's hand but by pressure so focused it looked physical. Plaster exploded behind him. The elders screamed. Root operatives burst from hidden positions. Haku intercepted the first from the rafters. Hinata burst through the side corridor and struck the second into the floor hard enough to fracture stone. The chamber became war in one breath. Slow motion. Sanban flashing like silver rain. Hyuga palms colliding with masked jaws. Anbu diving through broken windows. Naruto standing in the center as if the chaos were merely weather around him. Minato's kunai appeared in his hand with the speed of legend. Naruto looked at it. Then at his father. Are you here as Hokage, he asked, or as the man who waited too long? Minato froze. That hesitation cost him the initiative. Not because Naruto attacked. Because everyone saw it. The whole room saw the fourth Hokage unable to answer his own son fast enough. That mattered more than any jutsu. Shikaku shouted, "Stand down. All of you, stand down before this becomes irreversible." One root operative ignored him and lunged for Hinata's blind side. Naruto moved first. Chains of raw chakra, new, wild, imperfect, burst from her back and smashed the attacker through a support pillar. The room stopped again. Naruto stared at her own power, then at Naruto. I'm not letting them turn this into a hunt, she said, voice shaking. Not against you. Naruto looked at her, and something fragile moved across his face. Rare. Brief. Real. You chose late, he said. Tears gathered in Naruto's eyes anyway. I know. That honesty nearly hurt worse than all the lies. If you've made it this far, then you know what kind of story this really is. Not the one where Naruto forgives too early. Not the one where one apology resets a lifetime of emptiness. This is the version where love has to survive consequences before it deserves a second chance. Danzo made the final mistake. Pinned, furious, seeing the room slipping beyond narrative control,
he triggered the seal embedded in the floor beneath the council chamber, an old suppression array designed for tailed beast emergencies.
Black lines erupted outward. Seal tags ignited. A containment dome began forming around Naruto.
For half a second, everyone thought it might work. Then the system voice whispered inside Naruto's head.
Optimization complete. Countermeasure unlocked, Fang. Naruto raised one hand.
A red-black sphere formed at his fingertip, smaller than his first Zero, denser, quieter, far more dangerous.
Kakashi's eye widened. Everyone down. Naruto fired. The blast did not explode outward. It drilled.
A focused beam of condensed spiritual annihilation punched through the suppression dome, through 3 seal anchors, through the council chamber wall, and out into the night sky in a red-black line that lit half of Konoha like a wound opening across the dark.
Shockwaves followed. Windows burst across 2 districts.
The Hokage monument cracked across the cheek of the 4th stone face. People in the village dropped to one knee instinctively, staring toward the tower with pure animal dread. In the chamber, smoke rolled across the floor.
Danzo's suppression array was gone.
His authority went with it. Naruto stood in the cratered center of the room, sleeve torn, white mask fragments slowly receding.
No one moved.
No one breathed too loudly.
The consequences had become impossible to deny. This was not an internal concern anymore. Konoha itself had just been marked.
Naruto turned toward the broken wall where moonlight poured in over dust and silence.
When you speak of me after tonight, he said, voice carrying through the dead room, do it honestly. Then he looked back at Minato.
Tell the village the truth.
You didn't lose me tonight.
His eyes shifted to Kushina. You lost me when being quiet made me easy to forget.
Kushina's face crumpled. Naruto looked at Naruko last.
She had tears on her face and chain marks burning along her arms from forcing her power too hard.
I'm not your enemy, he said. Naruko swallowed. Then don't become one. The silence after that line could have split worlds. Naruto didn't answer. That was answer enough.
He stepped backward into the moonlight. A black tear opened in the air behind him, thin, vertical, wrong.
Garganta.
The first true spatial fracture of his hollow power. Kakashi saw it and understood instantly how much worse this could become.
Haku and Hinata moved to Naruto's sides. Not followers anymore. Not side characters. Assets. Allies. Chosen bonds.
Naruto gave the room one final look, not angry, not triumphant, simply done pretending any of them still defined him. Then the darkness folded around all 3 of them, and they were gone.
Konoha did not sleep that night.
Emergency teams ran street to street checking structural damage.
Parents kept children indoors. Clan compounds tightened security.
The barrier division rewrote half its assumptions before dawn and still couldn't explain what it had recorded.
Civilian rumors mutated into legend before sunrise.
Some said the fox had evolved. Some said the 4th son had become a demon. Some, quieter and more dangerous, said the village had created its own reckoning. Inside the Hokage office, no one spoke for a long time. Minato stood before the shattered window looking at the crack running across his own stone monument in the distance.
A public wound. A permanent one. Kushina sat with her face in her hands. Naruko leaned against the wall, eyes red, chains gone, childhood thinning visibly by the minute. Kakashi broke the silence first.
This doesn't stay inside the village, he said.
Not after that blast. Shikaku nodded grimly.
Every border sensor in Fire Country will have felt something.
Maybe farther. Minato already knew. Because there are events a Kage can spin, bury, or contain. And then there are events that announce themselves to history. This was the second kind. Danzo, bruised but alive, watched from the edge of the room with murder hidden behind statesmanship. That boy will bring foreign eyes to Konoha. Minato turned. His expression was calm.
Which made it worse.
No, he said. Our treatment of him did that. Danzo said nothing.
For once, even he recognized he had lost the room. Far beyond the village walls, in the white-bone depths of Naruto's expanding base, the consequences continued to bloom.
The chamber had transformed again.
The throne at the far end was fully formed now, jagged and pale beneath a ceiling streaked with black-red veins. The air hummed with a constant undertone, as if the entire structure were alive and listening. Naruto stood at the center platform while the system voice rolled through him.
Report. Village acknowledgement phase complete. Public fear index rising. Political destabilization successful. External attention probability high.
Hinata stepped from the side corridor, bruised but standing tall.
Haku followed, silent as snowfall. Neither asked if Naruto was all right.
They knew him well enough now to understand that question had layers too dangerous to answer casually.
Instead, Haku placed a stack of stolen documents on the seal table. We pulled what we could during the chaos. Council routes. Route dead drops. Border watch adjustments. Hinata looked at Naruto carefully. You held back. He glanced at her. Yes. Haku raised a brow. That surprises you? Hinata shook her head slowly. No. It terrifies me. Naruto almost smiled. The hollow appeared lounging on the arm of the throne, yellow eyes bright with delight.
You could have broken the whole tower.
I know. You could have killed Danzo. I know.
The hollow's grin widened.
So why didn't you? Naruto looked toward the distant direction of Konoha, though no walls here would let him see it.
Because some part of him still wanted a witness. Still wanted them alive long enough to understand. Still wanted the village to live with what it had done, not simply die beneath it.
Because death is easy, he said. Reckoning isn't. Even the hollow paused at that.
Then he laughed softly, almost approving.
The system pulsed again. New objective available, expand influence beyond village. Warning, multiple high-level entities detected responding to recent energy event. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Show me. A map of the elemental nations formed in spiritual light above the table.
One point glowed in the land of fire.
Konoha. Others blinked awake far away.
A serpent's shadow in the grass.
A red cloud on a black cloak in the rain. An ancient eye turning from the dark. Haku felt the room chill. They noticed.
Naruto's face became still.
Good. Let them come.
Because the village was only the first place to feel the cost of making him invisible.
The world would be next.
And somewhere in Konoha, Naruto stood on the roof of her house staring toward the forest, chains flickering weakly behind her, and whispered to the night.
Please don't make me choose. The wind did not answer.
But deep underground, seated on a throne made from pain he had survived, Naruto opened his hand and a black-red sphere of power began spinning above his palm like a newborn star.
Cold. Silent. Hungry. Part 2 did not end with peace. It ended with Konoha afraid to say his name too loudly, the Hokage forced to face the son he had overlooked, the mother learning that regret arrives after damage, the sister standing between blood and loyalty, and Naruto no longer asking whether he mattered. Now he was asking a different question. How much of the world would have to break before it finally learned not to look away? And in the darkness beyond the map, something answered with laughter.